Hi everyone, I'm Kristina Lundgren. I'm the National Secretary of PEFC Sweden, and we are together with our colleagues in Finland, Norway and Denmark arranging this lunch webinar on forest for sustainable cities. And we do that because we believe in the use of wood, as I believe all of you who have joined us here today do as well. Our mission is to provide society with sustainably produced wood material, and our tool for that is Sustainable Forest Management Certification. PEFC, very shortly, is the dominant forest certification scheme in the Nordic countries, with our large share of smallholders, which are at the heart of the PEFC system. Between us, we cover 43 million hectares of PEFC certified forest land. And we believe in a sustainable forest management, which takes into account all aspects of sustainability, ecology, social values and economy in a holistic way, both globally via global benchmark certification standards and nationally via our national schemes. So welcome everyone, and a special welcome to Susanne Rudenstam, Swedish Wood Building Council, who will be our moderator today. So please, Susanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Kristina. Yes, hi and hello everyone. And again, a warm welcome to this seminar. There are some almost 200 visitors listening in today, and from the Nordic countries, but also from elsewhere. And today we're going to talk about how wood leverage on sustainability in the Nordic cities. We get to meet leading architects, city planners and property developers from the Nordic countries who will give some examples on how wood contributes to more sustainable development in the cities in the region. And there is a lot going on in the Nordic cities. And currently, just some 100 meters from where I stand now in the studio, there are actually one of Europe's tallest housing projects all in wood is currently being constructed, Cederhusen. I will also introduce myself. I'm the manager of Swedish Wood Building Council, which is an organization funded by the Swedish forest industry and the Swedish sawmill industry and the Swedish woodworking industry, where the task is to grow the use of wood, especially within the construction sector. We will jump directly into the program, and I will start by giving an introduction on the development of wood construction in the Nordics, but especially perhaps from a Swedish perspective. We will then have presentations from all our speakers, and in the end we will have a discussion, but also possibilities for all of you in the audience to post and to text your own questions to the panelists, and we will try to answer as many as possible. So by that, I start by talking about wood, how wood comes into play in sustainable construction. This is the President of the European Union, who already in her State of the Union talk said that we know that construction sector can even be turned from a carbon source into a sink if organic building materials like wood and smart technologies like AI are being applied. And this is the reason, of course, why wood construction and wood building has become such a hot topic as an enabler of the low-carbon society. And it, of course, all starts in the woods. It is this renewable resource that we have a lot of in our Nordic countries, and the forestry and the management and the way of using the wood that is the key to this development also for wood construction. And we also have a sustainable heritage. Wood have, of course, always been our oldest material. We have a familiarity on how to use wood in constructions, both the small ones, the cultural ones, but also taller buildings. And we have many, many buildings like this, a church from the 11th century, built in wood and still functional. So sustainable material when we know how to do it. We also have a history of ambitions. This picture is from the World Exhibition back in the 1887 in Stockholm, where this building was built. It was 106 meters tall, all in wood. It also had a staircase and an elevator system, also in wood. It was built for the exhibition, so it was demounted after the exhibition. But we had the knowledge and we had the ambitions. But we also we have a new heritage. We have all the wood construction that is going on today. We are building in wood, much more now than we have ever done during the last century. We build the new urban societies, we build the tall buildings, and we build a lot of our public buildings in wood. And of course, we also have the continuous heritage, the heritage that we take care of. It's the building that exists, that perhaps get a new life when add-ons and extensions is constructed and used on top of existing buildings. That's also an area where wood absolutely come into play. And as I mentioned, it's not only housing anymore. We see a lot of new applications for wood building, such as this ventilation tower built in Stockholm. It's built in CLT with a nice and beautiful cladding of wood. This is an office building taken from a time-lapse video camera up in Uppsala, north of Stockholm. And a parking house is being built down in Skåne, in Malmö, 6 stories in CLT. We have caring homes, and we have also a lot of other types of infrastructure, such as this windmill in Glulam and LVL. And it's being erected, the first ones, outside Gothenburg in the archipelago. And it's built with the same logic as we build other types of building and even housing. It's built in a modular way. It's really easy to transport thanks to the lightweight and the modularity of the construction, and it's being erected on site and has a really, really low carbon footprint. And we, of course, also see wood as an interior material for the interior use. Also, this staircase, which is on NCC's new headquarters in Stockholm, is being prefabricated and transported into a building site and then put into place at a building site. So why wood in construction? Well, it's not just about exchanging one material from another. It also means that we have a new kind of business logic. It goes from being very much project-orientated to process-orientated. So the process itself, manufacturing technology, quality assurance, continuous improvements, experience feedback, all characteristics from the industrialized wood building industry. And then we have the building systems, prefabricated, standardized, configurable, flexible, easy transportation, and also fast assembly, meaning a short time on site. And the material itself, of course. Wood lends itself to all mentioned above, and also thanks to the environmental and climate benefit from the material itself. It's reusable, it's renewable, it's recyclable. And the construction industry, when I'm talking about more effectivity and the need for a new building process, has during time proved to have difficulties to develop in the same way that other types of production does. Still has a very poor productivity in general, and actually no improvement at all compared to industrial production. So this is really an area and a hugely important area where wood construction comes into play. This is perhaps also one of the most important issues to deal with when it comes to sustainability, is to really make use of all the resources that we take on. Wood construction presents three major building systems. We have the modularity, with modules built to a very high degree with prefabrication on site. Almost 85 to 90% is built at the factory. All the kitchen, the bathrooms, etc., are mounted and put into place already in the factory. Short time on building site, and just the small adjustments is being built on site, which is of course highly useful when we build in the already built environment, and also of course cost effective. Then we have the CLT and panelized base system with load-bearing walls, and the whole structure in CLT. It's growing really fast and enables much more or a higher level of flexibility. And we have also development of post and beam systems based on glulam, often used in office buildings and commercial buildings, where also the flexibility and long span is needed. And there is also development of new systems and hybrids and combination in between. So this picture is from a factory in southern Sweden, where this company has developed a volumetric system based on CLT, and that is also a growing building systems. And of course there is a future also where we have combinations of material and what we often call hybrids, where wood is also combined, not only the wood building system together, but also combined with other materials. So the Swedish construction industry in Sweden, some key numbers. We have now reached a market share of 20% in multi-story housing. Still, we build most of the single-family housing in timber, 90%. We have a really strong growth in other sector, other types of building, and we have a really good backlog onwards. The pandemic perhaps made us wonder about this, but it has proven that the wood building industry is going strong out from this. We have a wide presence at the leading universities, with the big universities having wood construction within their education. There is a lot of municipalities developing knowledge through wood building strategies, and we have some 15 producers of timber building systems. We have big investments in new capacity, especially in the CLT. New suppliers, new producers are entering the market. And we see also that the building industry, the big entrepreneurs, are taking on the wood project in a growing pace. We have strong wooden architecture, a great variation of projects throughout the country. And there is also a strong political push for wood construction. I'll come back to that. The driving forces for wood are these. First and foremost, now it's the climate, the need to change the way we build, the material we use. But there is also a need for housing. We still have a shortage of housing, almost all around Europe, in the world, I would say. But in Sweden especially, this is a driving force. But also a need for a new building process, as I just talked about. And And of course, work opportunities. Going towards a development of the off-site construction industry means that we could move construction work from the big cities towards smaller cities where the wood building industry is located. And they are located where the raw material is. So it's along the coast in Sweden, up in the north and down in Småland and on the west coast, predominantly. But you can also turn this into the driving forces. It's now or never. This is Agenda 2030, and this is what Sweden as a nation has committed to, but also the regions, the municipalities, and the whole building change are working towards the Agenda 2030 goals. And it's a clear development that is also happening right now. Key players are on board. These are examples on local and regional initiatives where local construction industry has decided to take on the goal on Agenda 2030. It's down in the south, LFM30. It's in Östergötland. Östergötland builds climate neutral, sorry for Swinglish. And also in Västra Götaland, in Gothenburg, Climate 2030. So there is a lot of push, and the industry is working jointly. And when decided to set up this ambitious goal for 2030 on reaching climate goals, then wood construction comes in as a fast track for reaching those goals. For the wood construction, the deliverables are, of course, the whole agenda, but especially a few that I think is worth mentioning. It's health, well-being, equality, it's sustainable industry and infrastructure, good working conditions, of course, hugely important, sustainable society, sustainable consumption, and defend the climate change, of course, but also ecosystem and biological diversity is, of course, important. But also number 17, which is about partnership and getting things done, because it's not what we build in Stockholm or in the Nordics that will actually make us reach the global goals. But our knowledge, together with the material that we use, can actually be a great contributor to those global goals. Because the world looks like this. There is such a huge demand for good housing, decent housing, and other types of building. Our cities are growing, and we need to change that rapidly. So I end by giving you this picture, which I think could represent the most important building, perhaps the most important building in the world. This is the kindergarten Hoppet, the Hope. It's down in Gothenburg, and this is the city of Gothenburg who ordered this house a couple of years ago. And the ambition is to go fossil-free, completely fossil-free. And it's being built right now, and the goal is almost there. It's not 100%, but almost. So this knowledge that we have created commonly, this knowledge is something that we could share and should share in order to reach the new fossil-free future. So I am by that, so thank you, and I will also, of course, welcome some questions in the end. This was perhaps a bit concentrated on the Swedish development, but now we are going to get all the news from our Nordic neighbors. So first, I will welcome Henri Linden, architect and unit manager for Urban Environments Division City of Helsinki. And Henri, you will speak about sustainable transformation of cities and metro centers. So you'll also give us some examples of completed wood projects in Helsinki, and also perhaps a bit of Helsinki's plans for sustainable construction onwards. So a warm welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon from sunny Helsinki. My name is Andri Linden. I'm a unit manager in Urban Environment Division in Helsinki. I will tell you about sustainable transformation of cities in Helsinki. Helsinki's target is to be carbon neutral by 2035. The most significant emissions generated in urban areas come from heat and electricity consumption and traffic. The emissions need to be reduced also holistically, taking into account the emissions of city structure, construction and maintenance. The energy sector is moving forward quickly, so the portion of building is going to get bigger. Helsinki aims to be carbon neutral by 2035, as I said, and has an action plan with 147 actions towards this goal. We need to implement every single one of these goals, and we need to do it now if we want to achieve this goal. The action plan affects basically everything we do. We need to look at Helsinki and the world through carbon neutral lenses. 19 of the actions affect detailed planning one way or the other. Wood is one of the big issues in the action plans also. So why would we have to build with wood? In order to reach carbon neutrality, at least at the moment, we need to focus in wood in the building industry. In Carbon Neutral Helsinki Action Plan, I think one of the most important actions in detailed planning, at least at the moment, is the action plan to build more wooden buildings. In building construction, we need to choose the most low carbon materials as possible, and at the moment, wood is the answer to this challenge. People have asked me often, is there enough wood to build so much? Well, if you build a 5-story apartment block from wood in Finland, it takes 10 minutes to grow back in the Finnish forests. Or the same thing, if you build 138 wooden apartment blocks every day. So at least in Finland, it's not an issue. There is enough wood. Wood offers long-term carbon storage, and the emissions during building construction are significantly lower than in conventional building. We've generated a new tool for detailed planning called HAVA to calculate life cycle carbon footprint and handprint. We made it so simple that it could be used in all our detailed plans so that we could get as carbon neutral as possible. Construction and maintenance may be almost 50% of the emissions in a life cycle of an area, so using wood in construction is a very significant part of aiming for the carbon neutrality target. So what's happened so far in Helsinki? Out of nearly 7,000 housing units yearly, the amount of wooden homes is still a very small minority in multi-story housing units. In this graph, you can see that the amount has been even at its peak, 8 buildings. Now we are hoping to change this radically. 43 buildings in 18 years, it's not very much. The first detailed plan, which required wooden structure in a multi-story housing, came into effect about 20 years ago. There was some experimental building, and not all were built actually with wooden structure. But the one with wooden structure gained a prize and some praise. Myllypuro Wooden Village is an area almost finished at the moment for about 2,000 inhabitants. There was an architecture competition held in 2003, and the main idea was to bring building along living streets and keep the gardens in their natural state. Mostly it consisted of small houses with 2 floors, but there was still some block of flats also. Here are some images of the area. A wooden village for 2,000 people started to be built around 2010 in Honkasua. Betoniteollisuus ry, the so-called Confederation of Finnish Concrete Industries, made an appeal against the detailed plan with wood requirements, but the appeal did not succeed. The judicial system assessed that requiring wood in building is justifiable for the positive impact on climate. This helped many Finnish cities to start requiring wood in building. Kuninkaantammi is being built at the moment, and in the detailed plan the focus is on climate change, both in mitigation and adaptation. Energy efficiency, renewable energy, green roofs and rain gardens are required in the wooden quarters of Kuninkaantammi. There will be around 30 wooden apartments buildings. This will help wooden apartment blocks to become a mainstream in Finland. In Kuninkaantammi, 2 almost identical apartment blocks, a concrete one and a wooden one, were compared. The building with a concrete structure had almost 40% higher carbon footprint than the one with a wooden structure. The wooden required more planning, but was built quicker. Several wooden schools and daycare centers are being built in Helsinki, among other public buildings. Most of them are required to be wooden from now on. Lapinmäki was the first daycare center with a massive wooden structure. And some residential examples. Helsinki Residential Construction Service builds wooden apartment blocks for regulated production. In around 20 years, it has built 6 projects, but it's going to be increased in the future. Here are some examples from Vuosaari, Pukinmäki and Jätkäsaari, so all over Helsinki. So how does the future look like in Helsinki? The future in Helsinki is wooden. We're planning to have a lot more wooden building in the future, both in large residential projects and in infill building. Here's a map about the future places where, at least, where wooden buildings will be located. Concrete has been for so long the main construction material that people don't come to think about building with wood. This applies especially in infill building, but we're about to change this. Industrial prefabrication is popping up more and more, and hopefully wood will be seen as normal construction business in the future. Here's one project which has been really interesting. A project with the purpose of developing a wooden parking garage that meets Finnish standards was launched in March 2020. Using wood in parking garages could help reduce the carbon footprint in construction. The project's parking houses are designed in Kuninkaantammi, Helsinki and Kivistö, Vantaa. Vantaa is right next to Helsinki. The parking garages will have green roofs to absorb stormwater and solar panels for producing electricity. I'm really hoping to see these built in a few years. How about urban renewal? Is wood okay in there? Many people say when asking about building in wood that yes, we want to support building with wood, but just this plot or this location, or this project is not suitable for it. This is why we need to talk about building in wood more, so that it comes up in early stages so that it is possible to build with wood. In infill building, wood is very suitable because it's light, especially maybe adding floors, and the buildings may be prefabricated, so they are quick to install on their plot, so they don't, the public wouldn't mind the building so much. Wood is also a likable material, which the neighbors will accept more easily. Here's an example about wooden redevelopment and adding floors. There has been an interesting project where the outer shell of a 70s concrete block has been redeveloped in wood, and there's been added 2 floors on top of it, also in wood. There's so far been a competition about this, and we don't yet know when this will be realized. We also have a master's thesis project going on in Tampere University for infill building. Marie Yliauhö is designing a serial produced wooden apartment building. The building's construction is massive wood and have possibilities for variation. I'm very eager to see how this develops, and hopefully we'll be able to build these one day. With the same basic structural solution can be achieved buildings with varying architecture, as you can see on the right-hand side. Then I have some other examples from areas. This Kontula has a metro station and a shopping center with a surrounding residential area from the 1960s and 70s in the eastern Helsinki. It's part of the Mellunkylä urban renewal project. There was an architectural competition last year for the urban renewal of this center. The winner had a flexible concept that allows a lot of diversity and phasing, etc. Wood was being used in residential building in many places, and it had vibes from the 70s and in an interesting way. Karhukallio is a new residential area for almost 3,000 inhabitants in eastern Helsinki. Almost half of new buildings are required to be wooden, marked in the map with red. And there's also other low carbon requirements. The tram line Raide-Jokeri has a stop right at the heart of the area. We've been researching geothermal heat and stormwater collection, green roofs, etc. Hermanninranta is also a big new area right next to the center. There will be homes for 10,000 people with services and recreation. Because of the foundation circumstances, the blocks and streets need to be founded on a piled slab. Therefore, the amount of concrete in the area is large already, and in order to compensate the carbon footprint, building from the ground up will be mostly wood. While Hermanninranta is going to be a substantial area with wooden building, there are several questions that need to be considered during the planning process, like the impact of wooden building in cityscape, or wooden building in welfare and living conditions, the impact of wooden building in climate change mitigation, and the readiness of wood industry. How will planning regulate building in wood? But since choosing wood as the primary construction material at an early stage, all these questions will be able to be answered as we go ahead with the planning. Helsinki East Urban Centre is one place where we will have a lot of new building in wood. There was an international ideas competition in 2019 and 20. Here's some images about the winner and the second prize. We have ambitious goals towards a more resilient city structure for the central of Eastern Helsinki. Wood as a building material, walkable city structure, and existing excellent public transport infrastructure give a lot of potential for the future. There will be around 10,000 inhabitants more phasing from 2024 to 2035. The goal is to make East Urban Centre as low carbon as possible, but the means are yet to be determined. Wooden building is definitely one of the means. Carbon Neutral Helsinki 2035 action plan will steer us in the future. Puotilanranta is right next to East Urban Centre or Itäkeskus, and it also has goals towards being carbon neutral in the future. City planning takes such a long time that the plans and designs we make in city planning actually should be already carbon neutral. Here's a couple residential examples also. The residential construction service builds wooden apartment blocks for regulated production, and in the next 3 years it will build 800 apartments with 60,000 new square meters new wooden houses. So the speed in wooden production will increase there too. There has been some concerns about builders though. Is there enough builders, enough knowledge in design and construction, etc., if we want to build so much in wood? So will Helsinki be carbon neutral in 2035? At least I'm trying my best to make this goal achievable. We all need to think it will happen, and then it will. If you want to follow the future of Helsinki, here's some links. And if you want to take a closer look at the action plan, here's also a link for that. And feel free to contact me with questions, etc. Thank you.
And we change.
Hello, everybody. We are on now.
Great. We can hear you and we can see you. Welcome.
Yeah.
Perfect. Most
Okay.
welcome, and thank you for being flexible.
Yeah, hi from Oslo. And thank you for the invite.
Hi.
My name is Christian Vass, and I work in NCC, which is a developer and contractor. And with me, I have Jürgen. Chico, you can present yourself, Jürgen. Oh, we lost him, but he's from Oslo 3.
Yes, and you will present Valley Wood. It's
Yes.
wooden. It's described here in the program as a wooden centerpiece in Oslo East. That is actually the largest commercial building in wood. So, and you talk about the project and the becoming of the building. So we are very excited to hear what you have to say. So I leave the floor to you then. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. We are going to talk about the Valley Wood that you can see in the picture, which is a very nice building. And we will tell you why we chose to use wood as a construction material in this building. And then Jürgen is going to tell you how, and a little more technical about how we went on. And I will then share some experiences. Yeah, it changed. I'm happy. You see a picture of beautiful Oslo in a sunny day, and the center of Oslo is down here. And we had a plot outside in Hillsfyr. That's about 3 kilometers away from the center of Oslo, where we had the building right to build 60,000 square meters of office. This was an area that had no content beforehand because the stadium wasn't built and this residential houses wasn't built at the time that we bought this ground in 2015. So we started out with a lot of ambitions for the development of the area, where the first building should really be the centerpiece and give some content to the area. It should be something new, and it should be sustainable and friendly, and it also should be a winning concept in the market. This is office building that competes with the tenants. It competes with a lot of other buildings in the Oslo area. And all this had to be done within the commercial frame. We still had to make money off this building and sell it on completion. We had a lot of struggles to find the right tool to do this. You can see this 4 diamond building, and we have this lower building that should be the centerpiece of this area. And we had a lot of discussions, and in one discussion somebody said that maybe you should do it in wood, and then it clicked for everybody. All the stakeholders agreed, and we did a rematch on the whole project, and we changed the diamond for a wood log. All this was done in 6 months before we were scheduled to start the construction. So it was quite hasty, and it clicked all the boxes. It is environmental friendly. It gives benefits to the tenants, and it looks good, and everybody loves wood. The drawbacks was the cost and the reception in the market. That was a bit in 2016 and 17. We wasn't quite sure what to think about that. So we added the cost by 5% in the calculations, and we went on with Valle Wood. It's important to notice that Valle Wood is not only a timber building, it's a concept. And I strongly believe that all environmental aspects that you put in a building should be put in a context with a concept, because it also have to be a very, very good building. In fact, it was developed and built by NCC in 2017 to 19 and sold on completion. It's about 7,000 square meters, 1,000 square meters each floor, 7 floors, and it's achieved BREEAM Excellent. We can't dig into the concept of the building, but it's also a new way of thinking about how to integrate the tenants' needs with the commercial areas. That's quite new in Norway, and it's a new business model for the tenants in this building. And as you see, it was very well received in the market. It's a beautiful building with a lot of special features to it. So we really should go and visit Valle Wood if you have the opportunity. And of course, one of the main thing is that everybody loves wood, and also the builders. They loved to build this this building, and we had very low absence of sick leave. That's unheard of in the NCC, normal NCC buildings. Okay, then I give the word to Jørgen.
Yes. Hello, good day. Yeah, my name is Jørgen Tyko. I am creative director of Oslo 3. We are an architect and engineer company specialized in timber constructions for the last 12 years. And on the Valle Wood project, we assisted NCC as to develop this timber construction. Next. So when we work with timber, it's important to know this about photosynthesis, and the tree is actually working as a carbon harvester or sequester, and we can store all this carbon in the biomass. Next. And by working with this, the small carbon circuit, this is also a way of working with carbon that is possible for us to understand, because we work the cycles that is millions of years. By using timber as next, Christian, as our main building material, we can actually have a negative carbon footprint opposed to the other larger used building materials that have a large output of carbon during production. Next. And in this way, we can start to look at the forest as a carbon sequester, and our buildings and cities as carbon storage units. And in this way, in the short run, we can deal with some of the carbon issues we have in the building industry today. Next. Yeah. So Vallewood, it's a 7-story pure timber building. You can see the facade here. It's made of heartwood of pine that is untreated, but it's fire impregnated. Next. Yeah, I think this is a video, Christian.
It won't.
You won't start? Okay, we just go past it.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, so here we see the building when it's before it's the cladding is on. What we see are the vertical towers for the elevators and escalators made of CLT. Then we have the column and beam construction of glulam, and then we have the CLT slabs or the TCC slabs. So the actual span here is 7.5 meter span, which is a good span for an office building. Next. Timber burns, but it burns very predictable. So we actually all we see here is actual visual wood, and we wanted to have as much visual timber as possible in this building. But that gives some quite drastic fire requirements. We have 120 minutes on the 2 first floors and 90 minutes on the from the 3rd floor and up. And all this we did by making the timber a bit fatter, a bit bigger to handle the fire requirements. Next. Also, the water is an issue on a building like this. On top of the CLT, and here we see the CLT slab. It's actually a TCC slab. It's a timber concrete composite working together, where the timber takes the tension and the concrete takes the pressure, making this slab extremely thin. So it's only 24.5 centimeters thick. Actually thinner than what a concrete slab would be with the same span. So a very interesting slab, and also the first time to my knowledge used in a large scale building in 2016. Next. So when we work with timber, we work with the reason we work with what we call the engineered timber or modern timber is because of BIM, because of the digitalization and how we can millimeter precision before we send it to the factory for production. And this is also very important to be able to build these super precise timber constructions. Next. Yeah. So what was done? It was built up this this building set, like almost like a IKEA model, where all the different advisors were part of this. You can just run through these pictures, Christian. You can see all the installations. Everything is planned before building start, and this is also an important premise for when you build with timber. You need to design it completely finished before you start up the production of the building. And this way we can also make a much more economical economical structure, because we reduce the material loss, and it's much easier to plan for the construction. Next. Yeah, so what is done is actually, even every element, every piece that goes into the building is added a lot of knowledge and information. And in this way, when we come to the building site, you don't really have to think that much. All you have to do is assemble these pieces together. Next. So here are some photos from the erection of the building. We have the ventilation, electricity, and so forth, everything pre-installed. Next. Here we can also see the slabs, the PCC slabs, before the concrete is casted. This is possible to do it in two ways. Either you cast the concrete on site, or you can make these elements off site and then lift them in. But in this project, we choose to cast the concrete on site. Next. Yeah, so here we see one of these interconnections that is only possible to do if you work with these 3D models, and the precision is under millimeter precision, even when we are up here in the 7th floor of the building. Next. Yeah, some more details. Next. Also, the staircase is made of CLT, made of timber. And this is actually the only part of the building that is fire treated. So this has a fire paint on it, but it's not visual for the, except if you're very interested in fire paint, you would see it. Next. Here we can see it from the office environment. Next. Yeah, and the installations and from the restaurant in the first floor. Next. Yeah, next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jørgen. I will end our presentation with some experiences from the building. As Jørgen mentioned, plan is vital. It's very important that we get all the information in the 3D model, and this is, at least in Norway, is not the way that the contractors normally works. We have to have a high degree of collaboration from the start. So we also had to new contracts with the most important subcontractors. So we get all the information in the model before we order the timber construction. We had some interface between the concrete and the wood, because we have two parking stories underneath the wooden building, and that's also something that everybody should be very precise when they start this interface between the concrete and the wood. And of course, we had a lot of issues about fire, and especially in the facade. And we had issues with discoloration from the slabs, the concrete slabs. Assembly time and progress was very, very fast, and you could see that in the video we couldn't share with you. And we didn't use any roofing, and moisture was not an issue in the building process. And of course, when we started this, the supplies were limited, but of course that have changed since. When it goes to the tenants and the sale, it was 100% leased with good rent levels. We achieved higher rent levels than we had in our calculations, and we have a very high user satisfaction. The users of the building is very pleased with the building, and with very few negative complaints from the tenants. And it's also sold in the market with good margins. Then I can close up with some nice pictures. Also, I have to mention that it's Lund & Slotto architects in Oslo that have been the architect of the building. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting and a very impressive building. I just have a question for you. Christian, you mentioned some of the challenges. What was there something that you were really surprised about, or what was the biggest challenge for you as a construction company in this project?
I think it wasn't really any big challenges. When we started, we had some ideas that we would get some challenges with the timber, the timber will expand and retract, and that would be an issue. That was not an issue at all. But we had this interface between the concrete and the timber that we were not was not precise enough, and we had this discoloration. The timber was out in the weather, and this was in the winter, and we get a lot of stains on the wood. And as you saw in the pictures, we wanted the wood to be visible, so we had to sand down a lot more than we originally thought. Another thing, positive that we didn't include was that the builders, everybody involved in the projects, was had a great ownership in this project, because when this timber construction get on site, it looks finished, and they had respect for the finished surface. So we didn't have any breakage or issues with some marks and stains with during the building process, and that was very good.
Have you been able to share your experience and the knowledge that you have gained with your colleagues in the other Nordic countries?
Yeah, we had we had 3 open days during the building process for the market in Oslo, and we had a lot of people come in to visit us, also from NCC in all countries, but also from the market in general. Actually, me and Jørgen had a presentation this morning for Citycon that wanted more insights on this project. Excellent. So it's quite important as a reference for many developers in the Oslo area, but also in the Nordic.
Yes, we're in the phase of knowledge sharing. And one question also for you, Jørgen, you are quite a senior in this development on wood construction, but do you still get a lot of questions from or insecurities from your clients? And what is the most common question or insecurity that you have to deal with?
Well, I think the questions are still the same. Is this possible to do price competitive to steel and concrete? And we are more and more, for each year that goes, we get more and more competitive. So I think we're there now. But I mean, the recent question is, what about timber prices? What's happening with the timber price?
Yeah. The question for today. Yeah. I guess we have to deal with that, all of us, for the moment. So I will welcome Martin Maribo from Link Architecture, who will talk about sustainable architecture and well-being.
Hello.
Hello, Martin, and welcome. You will give us a view on sustainability on wood, and you will also not only cover the ecological dimension, but also talk about economy and well-being. So please go ahead. The floor is yours.
My company, Link Architecture, in Danish context, tries to make the connection to wood in construction, in the building industry, and how certifications and common standards are important for the involved parties in our sector and in building and construction. I'll share a few examples of sustainable architecture where wood in construction is playing an important role, for reduction of climate impact from building materials and the production of building materials. And finally, I'll also tell you a little more in detail about the concrete project where we have renovated and transformed a social housing scheme in Denmark, combining the existing concrete structures and new wooden building components. As you know, my name is Martin. I'm a trained carpenter, so I have also some practical experience with wooden constructing architect. And I've worked at Link Architecture since 2007. And I'm in our company, I'm responsible for sustainability in Denmark. Link Architecture is a consulting architect company. We have 15 offices in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Approximately 500 employees. There are 2 offices in Denmark, one in Copenhagen and one in Aarhus, where I'm seated. And we, the Danish part of the company, became part of Link Architecture back in 2017 when we were bought by Link Architecture. We're working in most sectors of building industry. We do a large proportion of health buildings, hospitals. At present, we are involved with some of the so-called super hospitals in Denmark. Presently, we're finalizing University Hospital in Aalborg, and we're also presently involved in new University Hospital in Oslo. We also design schools and institutions like the one you were so fortunate to mention in your introduction to the seminar, the Hoppet in Gothenburg. We also have a small design department where we do industrial designs like hospital equipment, or ranging from that to wooden stoves, and also we do design for a famous Danish company called Vola, who are famous for their water taps designed by Arne Jacobsen. We also do housing, different cultural buildings like the sports arena from Randers. We do urban planning and also commercial buildings like offices and retail buildings. We are in the process in Link Architecture to implement and strengthen a new strategy for sustainable architecture. Call it impact architecture. What we want to do with that is to try and look at where we can have the greatest potential to give a positive impact on environment and climate. Likewise, with both sectors and our clients, where we will try to work to have an impact on how the sector is developing, and also on how our clients perceive the products, buildings, and the impact on the climate and the environment. And we will work towards a transparent and measurable and quantifiable results in our projects with well-documented results. We'll try and be proactive with the client in defining how the highest impact from a project can be achieved. And we've selected 6 focus areas that we think are the most important issues to deal with. And we've used these to relate our strategy also to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and to make a priority of the sustainable goals where we will be able to influence and give a positive impact. Our strategy will also aim at developing tools to deliver key indicators to give a clear connection between our effort and the desired outcome, again, with the focus on documented results. In Denmark, as with the other Nordic countries, we have adopted the Paris Agreement back in 2015, and this has resulted in the Danish government then followed up by adopting or passing a climate law where we have a target of a 70% reduction by 2030. And this, where we say that it's important to look at the building industry, which are responsible for approximately 30% of the CO2 emissions in Denmark. And the focus within the building industry is actually shifting from energy in the operation of the buildings to the materials and the energy and resources used in materials. We in Denmark, I think particularly in Denmark, if you compare to Norway, Sweden and Finland, we use a lot of concrete, and it's very industrialized the way we use concrete in Denmark. And that is, as we all know, a very high energy consumption material. In 2021, just recently, our government, they've launched a new strategy for sustainable buildings. They want to limit CO2 emissions. So far, as I mentioned, we're only looking at energy in the operation of the buildings, but the focus is shifting. They want to concentrate on recycling of materials. We want to use more climate-friendly building materials. And it's also a part of the strategy is to develop multi-story buildings in wood and promote wooden buildings overall. So hopefully this will make a change in the industry in a Danish context. The overall aim of the strategy is to reduce CO2 emissions and reduce waste. And it's also mentioned in the strategy that it's an aim to replace concrete with wood, which will reduce CO2 emissions. And also, if you use wood in construction, it has a greater ability of being reused or recycled instead of being just demolished and used for infill or maybe being recycled into a little less CO2 heavy concrete. This is just to show you the timeline of the government strategy, which actually shows that they are trying to, for buildings over 1,000 square meters, they're trying to put thresholds to how much CO2 a building is allowed to emit in the construction phase, not only the operation phase. So this will hopefully increase the focus on limiting of CO2 emissions in the construction, and therefore would be a natural choice of material. Wood is of course certified by PEFC. It can also be certified by FSC, and we have other certification schemes that are operating in Denmark and the other Nordic countries. And I just want to say that for us in the building business, it's a great help that we have these certifications and standards to actually make it a lot easier for us to use sustainable materials. And it's getting more and more widely used in the industry, and therefore it also becomes a lot cheaper to make sure that you are using sustainable materials. just want to show you a few examples of where we also use wood in construction in link architecture. The left here is a big hospital building in Hvidovre and in near Copenhagen, where all the facades are actually wood. Cladding, the final cladding is not wood, but we have actually saved a lot of CO2 emission by substituting the traditional concrete sandwich construction with wooden elements. We also have a building which is on the way near Oslo, Fyrstedbakken, which is a big apartment building where CLT construction is used, and where we also have a lot of sort of experience with new layouts and new designs for different ways of combining the modern family life in a housing estate. And I've just got an example here also of a Swedish project, which is a little shop where it's, apart from being BREEAM certified, is also a null CO2 byggnad. So it's like a concept shop of also constructed in wood. The actual project that I'd like to also share with you is a housing project in Denmark, in the northern part of Jutland, where we had where we have renovated 420 housing units. As you can see from these pictures, not all that exciting, and it was pretty run down. It doesn't show very much from these pictures, but also this housing complex had a problem of not being very popular and not being very attractive. Not a lot of social interacting among the occupants were going on. Here you've got an aerial photo of the very uniform designed blocks in neatly positioned rows. Our way of looking at this was that we would, firstly, we didn't want to demolish everything, because that is actually a big waste of resources and building materials, but we want to try and see how can we actually improve these buildings and renovate them so that they become attractive. And the idea that we came up with is to actually turn every second of the blocks around so that the blocks would start facing each other, in combination with a very big renovation of all the housing units. So yeah, here it's more clear that you can see every second of them is actually turned around, made to face each other, so that they actually invite to some social activity in between the blocks. This is a picture of the housing units while the construction was going on, where you can see that the facade elements were torn down, and but the concrete slabs and the load-bearing walls, also most of the roof construction, is actually preserved. The facades were renovated with wooden facades. Some of them got wooden cladding, some of them got a tile cladding afterwards. So the new renovated houses lived up to all the new isolation and energy standards, and we fitted large windows to make sure you got proper daylight going through all of the apartments. And we were also able to create a social space where you'd actually meet your neighbor from the next door block So this is just to show some drawings of the plan and the sections of the buildings that we are talking about, where every second row of blocks had a slight renovation, where they also got new facades, but the section and the layout were more or less maintained, whereas every other block got a bigger renovation. They were slightly extended in some cases, and they were made to face in the other direction. So we preserved foundation, basements, ground slab, slabs, and most roof constructions, and we also preserved all the load-bearing partition walls. So all of these structures actually adds up to 24,000 cubic meters of concrete, or equivalent to 6,400 tons of CO2, which, if you calculate, actually can make you drive around the Earth 750 times in a normal petrol car. And this is a picture of one of the finished apartments from these housing units. And that was the end of my presentation. I hope it didn't take too long.
Thank you. Thank you. That was good. So it was really great to get a picture on your work, and also some of the calculations that you have gone through, and obviously some very interesting projects. I was wondering, you made us a really good schedule on how on the reduction of carbon dioxide and the upcoming regulation. Has there been, within the construction industry in Denmark, has there been a consensus when it comes to an acceptance when it comes to this scheme?
Yeah, actually, when the climate law was adopted last year, they actually asked the different sectors of the industry to come up with their own plans and requirements to actually meet the goals of the target CO2 reductions that was set for the climate law. So this initially, the building industry actually came up with their own suggestions to the government, and then they actually, April this year, adopted this new strategy. So most of the measures in the strategy is actually suggestions from the industry itself.
So the industry is on board?
They're very much on board, and although the building industry is generally very conservative, so when it comes down to the actual projects, it still needs a bit of persuasion to actually make them see the positive side of wood construction. But they also realize that the industry, and that is why they have actually asked the government to set goals, or to make a threshold for the CO2 emissions, so that everybody will be forced somehow to look at these CO2 emissions, and so that it will not be an extra burden on those who actually do take the environment seriously.
And how wood? What is the general opinion on timber construction and wood?
Well, I think we're probably a bit slow in Denmark, because we've had almost wooden houses. It was almost not existing for a long period of time, where you said a proper house should be built in tiles, and then we had concrete, which was also very durable. And so, but it's a process. And I think we're getting there. We're seeing more and more houses being built in wood, but it's still a small part. We still have a long way to go. We have a heavy tradition of industrialized concrete buildings in Denmark, and it takes a long time to turn the development around.
But is the wood industry, are they present? Do you have kind of forming partnerships with the wood industry?
The wood industry is present, and we do have also representatives from foreign companies. I think mostly the CLT construction that has been carried out in Denmark, they're actually made from CLT imported from Austria. So we're a bit excited to see when production will be up in Sweden and Norway, so that we can start getting our products from there. We don't have so much forest industry in Denmark, so I think we still need to import the wood, but
you have good neighbors. You have good neighbors.
We have.
Yeah. So we're actually coming to an end, and before we stop, I will see if we will have the possibilities to invite Henri again. Are you with us? But I just had one question for you.
Okay.
Yes, and you mentioned that up until now, you mentioned that in the beginning of your presentation, for the time being, or for the moment, wood is the answer. How do you see the development of wood, or do you see other materials coming about, or I was just a bit curious on that.
At least in Finland, I think wood is going to be a major material for a long time. We have a lot of it, as I mentioned. 10 minutes takes to grow the amount of wood which you need for an apartment block. But there has been some research about a carbon neutral concrete. But so far, I haven't heard anything convincing enough for it to be a competitor in a carbon neutrality. But definitely in some point, maybe in 50, 100 years or less, we have something else too.
Well, there is a strong market now asking for low carbon solutions. So perhaps there is also combinations and development of hybrids. Actually, with just a couple of minutes left, I will ask Christina back to the podium here. Well, the technique, we have to say, wasn't with us really today, but we had some interesting talks, and we got to learn a little bit more about the development in the Nordic countries. Do you have any reflections on the wood building development from your perspective?
Well, I think it's encouraging to see all these clever people do good things with our wood, and also as pioneers, but also looking at a scale which will give us impact in the future. So that's my takeaway from today.
Do you have that we have a certain responsibility from a Nordic perspective with the knowledge both on forestry but also on wood construction?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, we do. I think we have a big role to play there.
In the world and onwards. So, by that, I actually thank you so much. There was a couple of more questions. We will have them answered in due time. And we will also have the seminars. We will actually cut some of it, but it will be present here on your website. And is there anything else happening exciting in your organization during the summer or autumn?
We will continue to do what we've been doing for the last 20 years, and that's to continually improve our certification scheme for quality and functionality. So we are at various stages of our standard revisions in the Nordic countries. So that's what we were doing, and we will try to keep on communicating the role of sustainable forest management and forest certification. So please get in touch with us if you have any requests or questions.
Yes, a hot topic for sure. So stay tuned, and bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.